Today, we're going to be exploring synapses. These small structures are where all the magic of communication happens in your brain. So, first off, what is a synapse? A synapse is the junction where a neuron communicates with another cell. This could be another neuron, a muscle cell, or a glial cell. There are two main types of synapses: chemical synapses and electrical synapses. Today, we'll focus primarily on chemical synapses, which are the most common types in the human brain. Let's break down the structure of a chemical synapse. It consists of three main parts. First, the presynaptic neuron, which sends the signal. You have the synaptic cleft, which is a tiny gap between the neurons, and you have the postsynaptic neuron, which receives the signal. So how do chemical synapses work? Let's take a closer look at the process called synaptic transmission. First, an action potential, which is an electrical signal, travels down the axon of the presynaptic neuron to the axon terminal. When the action potential reaches the axon terminal, it triggers the opening of voltage-gated calcium channels. Calcium ions then rush into the terminal, causing the synaptic vesicles to fuse with the presynaptic membrane and release neurotransmitters into the synaptic cleft. The neurotransmitters then diffuse across the synaptic cleft and bind to specific receptors on the postsynaptic neuron. This binding can either excite or inhibit the postsynaptic neuron, depending on the type of neurotransmitter and receptor involved. If the neurotransmitter binding excites the postsynaptic neuron sufficiently, it generates a new action potential, continuing the signal transmission. Synapses are not static. They can change over time. This ability to adapt is known as synaptic plasticity. There are two main types. The first is long-term potentiation, or LTP. This strengthens synapses, making future signaling more effective. It's essential for learning and memory. There's also long-term depression, or LTD. This one weakens synapses, reducing their effectiveness. It's also important for learning and memory as it helps the brain remove unnecessary connections. Let's dive a little deeper into how synaptic plasticity works. LTP occurs when synapses are repeatedly activated. This repeated activity strengthens the connections between neurons. On a molecular level, LTP involves increased release of neurotransmitters from the presynaptic neuron, enhanced sensitivity of the postsynaptic receptors, and growth of new dendritic spines, which are small protrusions on the dendrites where synapses form. These changes all make it easier for the signal to pass through the synapse, effectively making the connection stronger. LTD, on the other hand, occurs when synaptic activity is low. This reduction in activity weakens the synapse. Molecularly, LTD involves decreased release of neurotransmitters from the presynaptic neuron, reduced sensitivity of the postsynaptic receptors, as well as shrinking or elimination of the dendritic spines. LTD helps prune away less used synaptic connections, which is crucial to have an efficient brain that functions properly. Synaptic plasticity is essential for learning, memory, and overall brain adaptability. When you learn a new skill, your brain strengthens the relevant synapses through LTP. Conversely, when you stop using certain skills, LTD helps remove the now unnecessary connections, making room for new learning experiences. When synaptic function is disrupted, it can lead to various neurological disorders. For example, in Alzheimer's disease, there's a loss of synapses, resulting in memory decline and cognitive impairment. Schizophrenia is linked to abnormalities in synaptic signaling, particularly involving dopamine. Depression is often involved in imbalances in neurotransmitters like serotonin and norepinephrine. We also have epilepsy, which is characterized by excessive neuronal activity, which can result from dysfunctional inhibitory synapses. These are just a few of the many disorders that result from synapse malfunction. A single neuron can form thousands of synapses with other neurons, and these synaptic transmissions happen incredibly fast, typically within a few milliseconds. All right, and there you have it, a review of synapses, the tiny structures that enable communication in your brain and your nervous system.